Welcome to Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, the DPIA. If you saw my previous video, there was some trouble with some registration, but looks like it's up and working, so we're able to register and check out what the archive has to offer at this time. If you've watched any of Stephen Greer's movies, you're going to see quite a bit of the same information in here in terms of witness accounts, documents, illustrations, and that kind of thing. So I'm really hoping at some point something new will pop up, or at least a little bit more in-depth information. So we'll take a quick look at some things. For example, if we go down to UFO witnesses and whistleblowers, and you'll see we have top priority documents, and then it's categorized by country. So another point here, this isn't just a US thing. I see a lot of comments online, and what people say is, why is this only a US thing? Number one, it's not. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Number two, because you're only watching the United States news, right? Are you checking out Sweden or Denmark news, or from Japan or Germany, Italy, etc.? Probably not. You're going to be watching your own local news. And of course, a lot of other countries either don't have the resources or people aren't putting in any effort into reporting these. But anyways, because I'm in Canada, I like to check out what he has on Canada. And you'll see in the list here, there's quite a bit, but again, it's some information. You've got some videos you can watch of some interviews, but at the same time, it's just like anything else. It's just interviews. Where's the proof? Where's the documentation backing this up, right? And that's what I'm really hoping will come out of this. And if we go back to the archive, and you'll see there's all sorts of topics here, which are fantastic. You've got, things about the false flag operations, UFO photos and videos, things from their CE5 events as well, media corruption, and more. So there's quite a bit going on in here. And again, with photos, it's very tough. Even if we look at some of these, like we know that 1997 Phoenix Lights was a huge event. Celebrities were coming out talking about it. They saw it. But then my question is, why is it just this photo? Because for sure there's videos out there. So why are the videos not archived? Right? Because that does add a little bit more credibility to situations like this. Because otherwise, if you don't know about that, you're like, oh, cool, lights in the sky. But no, it was full video. So I'd like to see a little more details about that. And then, of course, the biggest topic right now, it seems, is the UFO crash retrievals. So again, we've got a worldwide situation here. Brazil, Cambodia, Canada, Germany, Italy, Iraq, Mexico, Russia / USSR, South Africa, and United States is what he's got this categorized. Canadian, let's check it out. There's an email here about UFO crashes involving Canada and Ukraine. And you can see this was sent to Dr. Greer in 1998. Then it goes into more details here. There's 161 credible events. You can check out the link. They go on to say even if only 10% are true, they actually think 75% are true. It's a treasure trove of technology for MJ12. And then it continues to go on, and there's a second page here. But again, where's the in-depth research? That's what I would love to see, is how deep does this information go? Because right now we're just looking at 2 pages of an email that anyone could make up. So that's where the skepticism, but with an open mind, comes in. I believe it. I want to believe it, but still would love to see some more evidence, if that makes sense. This one here is really interesting too. Again, it was sent to him in 1997 about potential dead entities in British Columbia. That was found by an officer in 1938. They were looking for a suspect in the remote areas of northern British Columbia, and he happened to stumble upon a cave containing 5 small dead entities. They had extended craniums, wore tight-fitting spacesuits, long fingers, and appeared to have been stranded on the planet. And of course, just like any military police type positions, he didn't make a report because he didn't want to lose his pension. But then he did end up discussing the incident with researchers, and they were planning an expedition to the remote area next month. Keep in mind, this was in 1997, and they'd have to go to the Alaskan-British Columbia border and go by float plane or helicopter from Alaska because the terrain is very rugged. This officer actually died in 1997 at age 94. And the last note, the researcher and Ed Komarek will be making the expedition. They'll put up the coordinates on the website at a later date. They're also looking for funding, of course. So again, this seems huge, right? They filed it away as possible ET bodies. where's the rest of the information? What website? Whatever happened to Ed and the researcher? So of course, the best thing, we can do is go to Google and see what it has to say. So I was able to find some articles that touch base on this a little bit. But like anything, how do we prove this is real? Or is it just people talking? It seems with a lot of these things in the archive, just from my quick preview, it's an email or a letter about a situation that someone's been involved in or they heard of, right? Hey, did you hear about this incident? Maybe look into it. And that's it. So it really is up to the people and the researchers to dive a little bit deeper. So again, it's things like this. He was involved in search for a cave possibly containing alien bodies with 3 exclamation marks. This is the type of grammar, and I don't know if it's just me, where I get they're trying to add some excitement, but that's exciting on its own. So it's almost like you're trying too hard to exaggerate the point. And that's just how I feel when I see this type of thing. But I get it. Email etiquette and letters isn't everyone's forte. So anyways, and then they actually, they enclosed a fax and they've rewritten it here to go on about how there's a commercial helicopter pilot. They worked for, blank in BC. And it goes on to say, why would a 90-year-old man take a story like that? There are reports that he and another officer did go on a search for a suspect in that area. And it's kind of like, we know they were there, but why would they make up this story and then share it later on? What was he going to get out of it by sharing it, at his end of life? You can't really say, oh, someone's trying to sell books or whatever, because no, that didn't happen. Of course, they go on to say there's many caves in northwestern BC. They've narrowed the search down, but it's a massive area, very rugged, very tough terrain. So unless they have the coordinates, I think it's going to be near impossible to find the actual cave unless they get lucky. So back to this fax to Art Bell by Rob Bailey. It goes on to say that since 1995, my partner and I have been involved in a recovery operation to evacuate the 5 alien skeletons. They were discovered in 1938 by Constable Larry Requia. So now we're starting to get some better names and dates. We interviewed Mr. Requia in 1995 at great length for about 3 hours. At the age of 91, he had amazing recollection. The 5 alien skeletons were positioned in a remote cave and had extended craniums. One of the entities had a metal medallion on, imprinted with star symbols. All 5 entities were facing a stone altar, and it was Constable Requia's impression that these beings had been stranded as they could not leave Earth. Now, of course, that's a pretty big assumption, but I guess if there's 5 bodies sitting in an altar, they're dead. Chances are they're there because they couldn't leave. The cave had unusual characteristics as it appeared to wind in a vertical configuration, and the walls were extremely smooth, as if these beings had used a boring device to make the tunnels within the cave. So that's really interesting, which means there's got to be some sort of technology or something laying around. And if there's bodies, then there's probably a craft. So maybe before he got to this cave, it was already retrieved. So that would be interesting to find out what happened with that. Was it buried somewhere? Was it already retrieved and this cave was just not found by whoever retrieved it, right? A lot of assumptions that are going on, and anything is possible. Rob goes on to say that they're planning a 3rd and final trip in July 2000 to extricate the skeletons from the cave. If we are successful, then we'll announce the results of our findings on the show. So either nothing came of it or something did, and that was the end of it. Through some quick searches, I haven't been able to find anything about, what happened to Rob or Ed, where they are now, what happened with this. So quite interesting. It's 2024 right now, and nothing's come of this. So was it real or not? Maybe we'll never know, or something's being hidden and covered up. So like I said, that is an interesting one. But from this, it's literally just a printout of an email, and there's no other documentation along with it. So you kind of have to do your own research. Now, I got excited when I saw this about Shag Harbor because it's one of the most well-known UFO incidences in Canada. And again, there's not much info out there because it seems people just ignore it and don't share it. And this is where that confusion comes where, oh, it's only a US thing. It's like, no, there are thousands of Canadian sightings every single year, but people just ignore it. And so the email says, I'm sure you're aware of the Shag Harbor incident in 1967. It goes on to describe it a little bit. And they're just saying, good luck. We're excited to see Like I said, this is just a simple email saying, ET evidence. And then it goes on to explain, hey, I'm sure you're aware of the incident that happened in Nova Scotia in 1967. Here, read this book. There's lots of info out there. Maybe there's something new. We're cheering you on and good luck. So that's really not evidence of anything, because anyone could have sent that email. And with a little bit of research, and because it's such a big case, it doesn't take much to find out what the Shag Harbor incident is. That is a lot better than this, because even websites like Wikipedia even have information on it. And there's this official document here from the RCMP that you can look at from one of the witnesses, right? So if this email is going in the archive, why not something like this? It's right there on Wikipedia. Even if you go to the Municipality of Barrington website, they've got information about the incident, and it's all laid out here. Again, where's the proof? Right now, it's just stories, but it was investigated by the RCMP. Like you saw on Wikipedia, they've got the paper trail to show that they spoke to witnesses and there was something there. Now, about the event itself, so 4 orange lights were seen in 1967 above the water. It started when 5 teenagers watched the lights flashing in sequence, and then it seemed to dive at the water at a 45-degree angle. So witnesses thought at first it was a plane crashing, so they made the call to the RCMP and to get out here because they thought there's been a crash. And even then, RCMP Constable Ron Pound, he had already seen these strange lights himself and was already en route to Shag Harbor to see what was going on. He saw 4 lights and assumed that they were attached to one flying craft, and he estimates the craft was about 60 feet long. So this wasn't just a couple of teenagers messing around. We have RCMP constable witnessing it. There's police corporal witnessed it, and a bunch of other local residents. They saw the lights in the sky coming down to the water. Some then saw it moving on the water, leaving a yellowish foam in its wake. And they were just sitting there watching the lights. They also had the Coast Guard run out with other local boats to go to the spot of the sighting, again, to investigate what was going on, and still people thought that it was a plane crash. Ultimately, they couldn't find anything, and they called off the search at 3 a.m. The following day, the Rescue Coordination Center filed a report with the Canadian Forces headquarters. They just said, yeah, we don't know what it is. It's unknown origin. And they essentially left it at that. They did send some divers to search the bottom, found nothing. And I'm glad they mentioned this, because this is pretty much the case with all major UFO cases. Unless people keep it going, they're going to, quickly make sure it leaves the news, leaves the media, and it moves on to something else. So it was actually brought back up in 1993, and people were coming up with all sorts of new theories. They said, it was a Russian spacecraft that crashed, because they had found a Russian submarine in the area. So they said, it must be related. And then, of course, there was a rumor the American government was involved in following up on the investigation, but no official statement was made. So it is quite the interesting story. And because there were so many witnesses, both civilian and military and government, it's one of the more credible ones. And so many people, even myself, we want to see the hard proof, the hard facts. But there's been people who have been thrown in jail on lesser witness accounts than what a lot of these UFO, UAP accounts have. So it's kind of funny how we can rely on witnesses for one thing, but not another. And when there's so much secrecy and cover up around these events, that just muddies the water, because you don't know what to believe anymore. But one thing remains with all of these stories from witnesses. They say they know what they saw. You may not know exactly what it was. Was it ET? Was it human? Was it something else? So it's not something they have to believe in. They experienced it. So go ahead, check out the Disclosure Project archive. There's a lot to look at here. Depending where you are, if you've been looking into this for a while or not, some might be new, some might not be. But from what I've seen so far, there's really nothing too in-depth, and there's really no photos or videos that hasn't been shown before online or in Dr. Greer's documentaries. But again, this is a work in progress. I'm sure it's coming. And from what Dr. Greer talks about, Congress has been sent way more in-depth, unredacted information that they just sort of seem to be sitting on. So take a look through these files and enjoy. And whether you like Dr. Greer or not, or believe everything, You don't have to, but at least he's still in the front lines, fighting the good fight to bring this information to light, making it easily accessible for us to read and watch, listen, and digest. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video.